everybody. Today we're going to be talking about how Taylor Swift's boyfriend, Joe Alwyn, was added after the fact as a recipient of the 2021 Album of the Year Grammy. And the name of the album, of course, is Folklore. It was Taylor Swift's third Album of the Year win. Huge win for her, well deserved. I was so excited when she won, and I'm so happy for her. Joe Alwyn was a co-producer on the album, and that allowed him to be one of the recipients of the award. We're also going to talk about how the Grammy Academy has changed some rules to try to stay more relevant. There were a lot of complaints about the Grammys, especially in 2021, and there always have been a lot of complaints. The Weeknd was shut out of any nominations when people thought he should have had a chance to even win Album of the Year, and he wasn't even nominated not only for the big four categories, Album of the Year or Song of the Year or Record of the Year. He wouldn't have been nominated for Best New Artist. But those three of the big four, he wasn't nominated or any genre specific. He was completely shut out. And he has a right to be extremely angry. So the Grammys are trying to stay relevant, and they're making a lot of rule changes. We're going to dig into that. Some of the rule changes were announced just earlier this week. We're going to talk about that. So I'm Tim Wolf. I'm a Nashville-based singer-songwriter, recording artist. And you can listen to some of my music. There's a link down below in the description where you can listen to some of my music on Spotify. And you also can download 10 of my recent singles. There's a link where you can do that, and I appreciate that very much. It means a lot to an artist when you support them and listen to their music, and so thank you very much for that. So let's dig in. Joe Alwyn has been Taylor's boyfriend since about 2016. He is an actor, a British actor, and his grandfather was a composer, so he has some family history regarding music. And where his main avocation is on stage as far as acting goes, apparently, according to Taylor, in some interviews she's given, he loves to play instruments around the house. She did an interview with Apple Music where she said that if it hadn't been for the COVID quarantine where they were spending time at home, they probably wouldn't have been writing music together. But she found that always cooped up, as we all were most of 2020, probably the year that we all want to forget. A lot of us spent a lot of time not going out, and he was always just as his hobby or his way of passing the time playing music, and she would listen and say, well, I can write some heart-rending, gut-wrenching lyrics to that and we can make a song. And so it kind of happened because they were in the same space together, and she said if it hadn't been for the quarantine, they probably wouldn't have been writing music together. And it's a good thing the quarantine came for them, because now Joe is a Grammy Award winner, not just any Grammy, Album of the Year, which is one of the big four, and maybe possibly the number one award that the Grammys give out. And so kudos to Joe, kudos to Taylor, of course. There were 9 people that were able to win on the Folklore win. Of course, Taylor, Jack Antonoff, and Aaron Dessner, her producers, Joel, her boyfriend, and then there were the mixing engineers and the mastering engineer. Those were Serban Guinea, John Haynes, Jonathan Lowe, Laura Sisk as engineers, mixers, and Randy Merrill as the mastering engineer. Alwyn co-produced 6 songs on the album. Those were Exile, Betty, My Tears Ricochet, August, This Is Me Trying, and Illicit Affairs. In addition, he co-wrote 2 songs, but was credited on the album credits as William Bowery. He co-wrote Exile and Betty. So those were his credits. Now, the way the rules were written for 2021, in order to win a Grammy, you have to be credited on at least 1/3 of the playing time of the songs. Not just 1/3 of the songs, 1/3 of the playing time. The Grammys had to calculate if he had enough credits to win a Grammy. And apparently they did that, and they decided that he did, and so they after the fact awarded him the Grammy. It would have been nice if he could have been on stage and received it with everyone else that was there, but I'm sure he's happy to have received it regardless. Kudos to both Joe and Taylor. Very exciting that they did this. And he also worked on, for example, Champagne Problems and co-wrote that. That was in the album Evermore, which Taylor said that he came up with not just the chords but also the melodic structure of the song. And she said all she had to do was write gut-wrenching, very sad lyrics, and he said that they both like those kind of songs. And in fact, she even said that he often introduces her to new artists and new songs that he likes. So he's very savvy as a music consumer, and now also obviously as a music producer, because he's a Grammy award-winning music producer. Kudos to Joe. Now, also announced after the fact was Beyonce's daughter, Blue Ivy, who's 9 years old, was announced that she won a Grammy, and also WizKid. were added as artists on the song Brown Skin Girl, which won for Best Music Video. Blue Ivy became the second youngest artist to win a Grammy. And that's pretty exciting. And I would say that she's got an illustrious career ahead of her if she chooses to go into music with her parents who can help her along and give her the support she needs. I would say there's probably more Grammy wins in her future. Now, the youngest person ever to win a Grammy was age 8, and that was Leah Peasel of the Peasel Sisters. And they won for a Grammy for Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? If you remember, that was a movie that came out in 2000, and it was a huge hit. A lot of bluegrass types of things on it. It had some of my favorite actors on it, and I remember almost wearing out that CD, listening to it over and over. Jo isn't the first significant other to share in a Grammy. In 1991, Natalie Cole's then husband, Andre Fisher, won a Grammy for co-producing Unforgettable with Love, which was the album of the year win. Fisher had been the drummer with Rufus. Rufus, I don't know if you know the song, Tell Me Something Good. That was a Rufus song. Love that song. Chaka Khan, of course, was the lead singer for that band, and she went on to have her own career, and she's still producing great music, and I think she's in her 70s now. So the Grammys have made a lot of changes after the Grammy Awards of this year, earlier this year. And there were so many complaints. One, of course, was The Weeknd. The Weeknd was shut out for his album After Hours and his hit song Blinding Lights, which was really the #1 song for all of 2020. And he wasn't nominated for any category at all, not just the big categories. Song of the Year, Record of the Year, Album of the Year. He wasn't nominated even in the genre-specific categories. And that was a huge slap in the face. And he said he's boycotting the Grammys going forward. And so the Grammys, I'm sure, are trying to look at how they can make changes so they can stay relevant. And it's a moving target. It's hard to get there. And we're going to dig into what changes they announced and the things they're trying to do to improve the Grammys. I still believe in the Grammys. I know they're flawed. It's a human endeavor. All human endeavors are going to be flawed. But they are trying to rectify it, and there is no other alternative. They are the preeminent music award. Let's face it, people love award shows. That's why American Idol and The Voice are such popular shows. And then they crown the winner. People love award shows, and people like to see who can win and like to see their favorite artists win. So I don't think award shows are going away. I just think they need to try to update them and keep up with the times. And it's a difficult thing to do, and we'll see that they have gone back to rules that they had previously that were put in place because of previous controversies. I think as long as they've been in existence, there have been controversies. So let's talk first about the change with who can win on an album of the year. So the way it was set up for these Grammys, but it'll be different for next year, you had to have a credit on at least 1/3 of the running time of the album. That's going away. That's going to go back to what it was in the 90s, where if you had any credit on the album, you were able to win on the album of the year. So they wouldn't have had to do the calculations for Joel to make sure that he was able to win, because he was credited on 6 songs as co-producer plus 2 songs that he co-wrote. So he would have been able to be on stage with Taylor without any questions when she won. That also means that featured artists, if you're a featured artist on an Album of the Year nomination, you will, and that wins, you win also. This year, let's see what would have happened. Just to read the lingo, it says all credited featured artists, songwriters of new material, producers, recording engineers, mixers, and mastering engineers who worked on that album are automatically nominated. Previously, the rules stated that all these pros had to be credited with 33% or more of playing time to be nominated. This is a retreat, and this is Taylor Swift comes into this again. Back in 2009, when Taylor won Album of the Year on her album Fearless, Colby Collet got a Grammy for that because she was featured on one track, Breathe. Shortly after that, the Grammys went away from that and changed it where you had to have 33%. So they're going back to where they were. So they're changing it back to the old ways. Let's talk about how many people could be on the stage with some of the other albums that were nominated. 2 Album of the Year nominations, Post Malone's Hollywood Bleeding and Jacob Collier's Jessie, Volume 3, each had 10 credited featured artists. Another nominee, Janae Aiko, was just a beat behind. She had 9. Taylor's Folklore had just 1, Bon Iver. And since he wasn't in 33% of it, he wasn't, based on the previous rules, he wasn't allowed to be sharing that Grammy. Now, under the new rules, he would have been able to win as well because he was a featured artist only in 1 song. So here's an interesting thing. There were 2 artists that were featured on 2 Album of the Year finalists, Future and Ty Dolla $ign, So under the new rules, they would have been nominated in 2 albums, and they weren't featured on either one, or they weren't the main artist in either one. So it's going to be interesting. There's going to be inflation on Grammy Awards. They're going to have to print up a lot more Grammys, make up a lot more Grammys. I don't know that that's a bad thing. I'm not saying it is, but that's definitely going to be the thing. But the biggest change that the Grammys made was they made it in April 30th, and it was a shocker to the industry. They did away with album review committees, and this was considered the culprit as to why The Weeknd didn't win, because the nominations didn't come from a vote of the Grammy Award winners. It came from a committee that decided who could make it on the nominations. They completely did away with those. And it's interesting, again, coming full circle, they instituted the album review committees in 1989, and they put them in Album of the Year category because in 1994 there was a big controversy that hip-hop and rap didn't get nominated for Album of the Year, but Tony Bennett and Three Tenors, which is opera, were nominated for Album of the Year, and there was a big uproar. So they tried to rectify that by coming out with these review committees that hopefully would rectify it. Well, that didn't work because The Weeknd, which I believe he should have been nominated, was not nominated. So they said, just scrap that, and we're just going to go on the membership and how they vote. So there's the problem that you've got a lot of the older people who have been Grammy members for a long time, and they now be fans of rap or hip hop, and so they override what is popular today. The Grammys are also making every voting member recertify themselves to make sure that they, and I don't know what process that is, but hopefully that would be to eliminate geriatric people who aren't really hip with modern music and just like the music from the 40s or the 50s would nominate Tony Bennett, who's now in his 90s and is suffering from dementia, if he had an album that came out, just as a random example. And they're forcing those people to recertify. They've had over 90% of their Grammy voters be recertified. And another step they made is they reduced the number of categories any person can vote in from 15 to 10. So, and they've got to be connected. So they're trying to tighten up the rules and make sure the people that are voting are people who actually know about the genre that they're voting in and trying to make themselves more relevant. And I applaud them for that. And so I hope that The Weeknd will soften his stance on boycotting the Grammys and come back. He said he's never going to submit his music again, but maybe he will in the future. Another problem the Grammys have had is they underrepresent artists of color, which The Weeknd is. I don't know how they solve that, but it's something that needs to be addressed, and hopefully they can continue to stay relevant. I would like to see that happen. One last change, there were 2 categories. They were added, 2 brand new categories. Best Global Music Performance. The Grammys are trying to stay global and relevant around the world. And the Best Musica Urbana Album. Grammys making changes. Hopefully it means it'll end up being a better thing for the Grammys and people will have more confidence in them that they actually are representative of the best music that are on stage getting their awards. We'll see what'll happen. Thank you so much. Appreciate you. Thanks for watching my video, and we'll see you next time. Hey everybody, this is Tim Wolf. Thank you so much for watching my video. Please go to the link down below in the description. There's a bit.ly link. Listen to my music at Spotify. I appreciate it very much. It means a lot to an artist if you follow them. If you would be kind enough to like the video if you enjoyed it and share it with your friends. Finally, be sure to subscribe. And also there are other videos on this screen that you can watch. And I'll see you next time. Thank you so much.